So you made it. You made it to the last section of the last day of the Tableau conference. I was wondering if there was going to be like 4 people in the audience for this thing. So thank you for showing up. I don't know if anybody has given an opportunity to have people thank all the production staff that we have. John up there in the booth, he's been doing this for everybody. It's nice having people who are experts at what they do that allow us to be experts at what we do. So. My name is Dan Colbert. I'm the business intelligence manager at a small company named Forecast5 Analytics. We're in the suburbs of Chicago in Naperville. We're a company that's focused on analytics as a service for school districts, public school districts around the country. We're in 20 different states right now. In a nutshell, what we do is most states require their local school districts to report up to the state specific data elements like financial data, salary data, enrollment data, student performance data, other things like that, and they make that data publicly available. Most of the data in our system and the data we're going to show you today is publicly available data. Anybody could pull it down and do what we're doing. But what we have done is we have built out a front end. We are an embedded analytics partner with Tableau. We have a front end web application where we sell the service to school districts so they don't have to put the thousands and tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially in investment into building out their system. And we give them the power of comparing themselves to other school districts in the state to see what's working, what's not working, how they compare, things like that. Just to show of hands, how many people here are embedded analytics, where you embed visuals inside a front end? Okay, all right. And then how many people are actually developers who either understand or know Python or want to know Python? Okay, good. And then how many business people who are interested in making things happen faster in production? All right, if I catch you napping, I won't say anything. We're going to be just technical enough to put the business people asleep. We're going to be just untechnical enough to put the technical people to sleep. So by the end, I'll just be singing a lullaby and we'll all be good and rested for our plane ride home. I'm joined by, it's not Tim May. Tim May was in the app under my co-speaker. He was not able to make it, so I brought Patti Santolin. She is on my team. She is the Tableau developer who put together the templates that we're going to be showing you an example of. A little bit about me. I've been a user of Tableau since Tableau 5.2, mostly on the server side. So I'm more the back end. I did the Tableau installations, the upgrades, all that stuff. I've had previous lives as an ETL developer, data architect, DBA, QA, you name it in technical data. I've done that. I've been the whole team. I've been a part of a big team. And so basically my technical chops are, I can pretty much figure out whatever somebody else needs to do, and then I hand it to somebody to make it look good and act right. I'll do the upfront stuff, and then I give it to the real smart people to finish it up. So I am passionate about building processes and using whatever tool I need to use to improve that process with the same amount of effort. I'm interested in going home at the end of the day. I'm interested in having a life outside of the office, and processes, when done right, allow me to have a life that's, I put my 40 to 45 hours into my job, and I can go home to my family. Speaking of my family, this is a picture of that beautiful set of people behind me. The front end you don't want to look at, the back side you don't. I'm a husband to my wife, Heather. I've got a daughter who just started college, so if anybody has any extra money they want to give me, I'd take that, but we'll talk afterward. And then a son who is a junior in high school. I'm a trained musician. I'm in technology because I like to eat, and paying my bills is good, and as a musician, that wasn't necessarily guaranteed, and I didn't have enough, let's say, lack of modesty to push myself on people and say, I'm really, really good at that, so I went to something else. I love Chihuahuas. We have 2 Chihuahuas now. Other dogs are great, but I just love the personality of the dog. And I own my own separate little side gig that the dogs helped name, called Zoom Doggy Coffee Roasters, a little micro roaster that's in addition to my side job, or my real job. That is my side job. It takes my money. It doesn't give me money. And I'm joined by Patti Santolin.
Hi, my name's Patti, and I've been at Forecast5 for 3 years. I've worked with Tableau since 5.0, and this is my 7th conference, so I'm very excited. to get to come again, so next year in Las Vegas. This is my husband, Kenny. I have 3 boys, Sean, Logan, and Ryan. I almost forgot his name. And I just like helping people with data, mostly in the nonprofit realm, so that's me.
So what we're going to talk about is, it's not really talking about Tableau. It is talking about Tableau. I mean, I guess I got to say that since I'm at the Tableau conference. But it's talking about how we were able to understand the underpinnings of Tableau and build out literally hundreds of copies of a template within seconds. So the first thing I want to do is I want to kick off a process. So the first thing I want to do is show you an empty directory, okay? And this empty directory will not be empty. I'm going to click play. We're going to show you what's going on here at a later point, but that's just a little sizzle for the steak I'm trying to sell you. So 5Site is our product that we embed our analytics in. My team of 3 data developers and 3 delivery developers maintain about 2,300 visuals that we deploy into our application across 20 states. Those 2,300 visuals seems overwhelming initially, but really it's our data sets come out once a year. So if you think about it, 20 states, financial, salary, enrollment, student performance, maybe a few others. Overall, it's about 230 data sets that we manage every year as they come out from the states. So we load that data, we pull it into our managed Tableau visuals, and we present that to our users. As we have grown, new users come into a fully developed, fully mature product application, right? And so they get the result of 5 works, and it's really overwhelming to them. And I'll show you an example of why that might be. And so along with that, how many people build visuals for other people? Okay, this is a scenario I'm sure you have encountered. Here's your new visual. That's great. Can you add this filter? Sure, I can add that filter, but no more. Yeah, okay, that's great too. Can I have this filter? Yes. Can I have this other filter too? No, but I really need that filter. And so by the end, the visual that you had that was here with a filter on the side becomes a visual that you have here with filters on the side, right? Those filters then become performance problems. You have usability problems. New users coming in, they have no idea how to use that visual. And I lovingly call those our Swiss Army knife and visuals. So I have 5 million questions. I want to be able to go to one place to get that question. Early in the process, when you're a startup company and you're trying to build a product that other people will use, the only answer can ever seem to be yes. Yes, we'll do that for you, Mr. Customer. Yes, if I want to have you continue to pay us for this product, I'm going to give you whatever it is that you asked for. So let me show you a little example of our application. This is 5Site. That's the visual wall. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on how we embed these, but we have a front-end application that has every 2 minutes it refreshes the number of visuals that are in Tableau Server and refreshes this visual wall with the tiles that we control. You can see they look sort of similar to the Tableau tiles that you'll see in Tableau Server, but we actually curate those and make those look a little bit different so they look the way we want them to look. As a brand new user, you can see there's a lot of visuals here. If I'm an educator and I'm trying to maintain and manage my school district, I have no idea where I could even start. Which visuals are important? Which visuals aren't important? What do other people use? What questions can I even ask of these visuals? And then once you get past that whole issue, this is just financial. Then we got enrollment and we got other ones. What is other? I mean, this is like miscellaneous category, right? Salary, so there's so many options and this is such a large fire hose that I'm trying to get a sip out of, I don't even know where to start. And then when you get into the visual, I'm going to show you our line item spending comparison. This is the thing I mentioned. On the right-hand side, you've got 14 filters. How am I supposed to use, as a brand new user, as the admin assistant to the business official in a school district in some small county in Virginia, how am I supposed to get the information for my boss in time for that board meeting tonight? Okay, so this is stressing me out, and I know how to use the product, okay? So it's the problem is usability, the problem is understandability, and the problem is speed to delivery for our clients. And that's where stories came in. The thought was, we wanted to build a single story, locked down, no filters, and predetermined data sets that are specific to that client and the specific set of peers that they have already defined using our deep dive analytics. With that very small fenced-in yard, we went down the path of, okay, how now do we create these en masse? Because Texas alone, there's 1,500 school districts in Texas. So if you have 1,500 school districts, let's say we get 10% of those as clients, or 20% of those as clients. That's 300 clients. They each have 2 users. That's 600 visuals. How do we create 600 copies of one visual that looks to that user as a custom-built analytic? We started, I'm not even following my own agenda. So there's the agenda. As you download the slides, you'll see that I'm not following it, and I'll just move to the next slide. So now we're going to the overview that I just skipped to. Okay. What we have moved to is, I mentioned those stories with the button down and very simple. You see this little tab here in our application. These are stories. The same single template we were able to create and deploy to Tableau Server programmatically using Python. And when they go in, you can see that financial. There's a district financial 360. Two things about the usability. One, at the top, there's a question. That question, where does our revenue come from? Their answer is there. I begged and pleaded for the guy who designed this to not put a pie chart in there. And I threatened him, actually, a little bit. I did not threaten him. I did not threaten him. But the educators love pie charts. And no matter how you try to convince them that they're actually working harder to use that analytic to get the answers, they don't want to listen. So question and answer, question and answer. There's no filters. There's some hover stuff that we've been able to create more of an explanation rather than just your templated tooltip. So easy, quick. They know what questions being asked. They know the answer as part of that visual. Secondly, we designed it so that the visual can be downloaded to a PDF. It's just part of the native. It's an 8.5 by 11 page. They can download it. They can save a copy of it and email it to their school board for the meeting that night. So when they're at the school board, they're asking the questions, they're giving the answers, and the school board is getting the answers to that thing. So we've cut down their work from hours and hours of digging into those deep dive analytics to a question and answer session. If it's about salary, they go to the salary visual. If it's about financial, it's about the financial visual. So the question is, how to get a single template from that template into the copies? Let me go back to our slides. The first solution to simplify from that deep dive to the stories, I mentioned peer sets. In our application, they can do analysis in a drag and drop homegrown cube environment. It's similar to analysis services, but it's our own homegrown version, where they can save a list of districts from their state into a list and manage it in their site. They can apply it to visuals. They can apply it in the cube environment. And so they predefine that. And our first solution was a JavaScript API dropdown, where it allowed them to select their peer set, and then it would go in using the JavaScript Tableau API and just check the boxes in the filter named district. It worked okay, but it still didn't answer the real issue. Okay, I am so out of order. Thank you for bearing with the fact that I'm so out of order in my slides. So I've shown the line item slide. Okay. Here are the tools that we've used. Tableau, that would go without saying, I guess. Python, use the PyCharm environment. Just a little caveat, I am not a developer. I'm a hack. I can make programs do what I want them to do. If and when you see the code, don't judge me. Remember, I'm a trained musician. I'm not a trained computer technologist. But I can make it do what I want it to do. Tableau tools. Anybody familiar with Tableau tools? Okay, get familiar with Tableau tools. TableauandBehold.com. Bryant Howell works for Tableau and has built a Python library wrapping the Tableau REST API. So being a non-programmer, like the whole REST API, get, post, HTTP, all that stuff, I have no idea how to do that. He took all of that deep level stuff and wrapped it in understandable Python class definitions and so forth. So that's great. I mean, bookmark it. He updates it regularly. He was very responsive when I had questions or when I had any kind of updates or suggestions for bug fixes. We also use Subversion. We found that being a local, like all of our environment is in AWS. It's all, Tableau is in Linux. We have SQL Server also in Linux. And the deal with copying the template up to the cloud and all that stuff, rather than deal with that, we use Subversion. Everything gets checked in, and the Python code actually goes in and gets the latest as part of the replication process. We build the Twibix templates. Everybody familiar with a Twibix, a packaged workbook? So that is actually just a zip file. It's a zip file with a different extension, TWBX. If you use 7-zip or some other kind of archiving, you can right-click and open the archive, and you'll see, and I'll show you this a little bit later, you'll see multiple files underneath there, and we've leveraged that, and we, as part of our, somebody didn't say hacking earlier, they said under the covers development or something where it's a word that's less than hack. Speaking of hacking, don't tell anybody, but we're hacking we're hacking the XML. There is some initial server prep work. Some of the stuff we'll show you is specific to Forecast5, and you wouldn't necessarily do it exactly the same way because it's specific to our application, but I'm hoping that there's some meta higher level information or like a metadata about it that'll help you. And then we publish the replicated copies. We're not going to deep dive into any of the code. I'm going to show you a few snippets of it. We'll show you a few screenshots. I would be happy to give you my business card and show you what we've done. I am a firm believer in community, and I'm a believer in that good programmers write good code and great programmers steal good code. So please, I'm more than happy to share with you the brick wall that I continually beat my head against so that you can avoid doing that same thing. So a quick overview of the flow of how we go about making stories. The first thing is we create the template. It's a twib file, and that twib file gets copied into a Twibix file. Something real quick about, I mentioned how tightly we defined the fence of the design of the visuals, right? A question and a visual, question, visual, question, visual. It's the same thing with the data underneath it. Each page in the story is locked into a single data source in the workbook. That single data source passes in parameters to a single stored procedure in SQL Server that returns the data. None of the pages that you see here have more than 15, 20 rows of data. It's very small. All of the stories that we deploy to Tableau Server are 200K, including data, with all the hyper extracts and all that stuff. It's returned very small. And the reason for that is we want it to perform fast, and we want it to refresh fast when the data changes. One of the requirements I put on the project was that it had to refresh in less than 30 seconds. Otherwise, we couldn't scale very well at all. So we build the templates, and we run it through the replication. The sample I'm showing you today is using a text file. It's a pipe-separated, delimited file. And when we replicate that, we create n copies of the Twibix. We've done one at a time for individual requests from clients. We've also done 350 for a statewide conference that we did for superintendents in several different states. So it could be one, it could be several hundred. Then we publish. We have started using control tables, batch control tables in our application database so that we can go away from the peer file. So we don't have to have a text file that someone has generated. We can build it off of those batch processes. And then the objects in Tableau Server, we're going to touch on these pretty high level. I will point out the tagging. Remember the big blocks that you saw with the name of the visual and the name of the person and all that stuff for the story? All of those are values in a name value pair in tags on the workbook when we publish them to the server. That way, when the Tableau REST API, when we get that payload back, we're getting all of the information that we need to tell the user this is what you're looking at. I'll say one last thing about, oh boy, my brain just stopped. One last thing about the templates, and Patti will touch on this a bit more. When we save the template, we've worked on it with actual real data. We save it as an empty data set. We put everything to 0 and we refresh the hyperfiles so that they're empty. And the reason for that is when we publish, there may be a point in time where the client will actually see that visual, and we're working on this so the bit better deployment process, but I want them to see empty rather than seeing wrong data. It's easier to explain an empty visual than it is to explain why they were seeing somebody else's data in their visual. Okay, Patti's turn.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over a few things that he discussed already, so some detail. So like Dan said, we have 2,300 or so visuals in our regular product. They look a certain way. They've gotten out of control as far as some of the things like the million filters and the god-awful pie charts. But there are some things that we just can't get away with. And once a client asks for it, it's very difficult to get it back. We can't take it back once we've already given them that option. So what we do to make it as efficient as possible, and starting with a clean slate, we pass in 3 parameters at the stored procedure level. We don't, in this case, we're passing in the district itself, the district number, its peers, and the year. That's the three parameters that we're passing in with the stored procedure. And then, as Dan said, we use 1 stored procedure per page, because we want to get it as lean as possible so that it runs as fast as possible and so that it has the least amount of data, only the stuff that we need. Our stories look like this. Dan showed you. This is one of the prettier ones. We can't get away with using pie charts because some people just want them. But it asks one question. There's the question, and there's the answer. And so we did pretty them up a little bit. In our regular product, we use the regular tooltip that comes along. It's got the 2 columns, the measure or the dimension, and then the value of that. But in this product, we had a little bit more leeway. We were able to use some conversational tooltips, which I think are a little bit easier for our customer to read. I think they're more informative, and I think they just generally look better. So we got some opportunities to use some good practices along the way. And so I did learn some things. I learned that it's really hard to be consistent. Even though we have what we thought was a perfect template with everything formatted correctly, even down to the font and the size, we sometimes still had issues. And our QA department would find all kinds of things. So we ended up making a checklist. And so what that checklist does is it gives us an opportunity to check every single visual, even if it's already been made with a template, so that we made sure that everything was correct. The second thing I learned was, or third thing I suppose, was I'm sort of a reluctant SQL developer. I have Tableau designer experience, and I've only been doing dynamic SQL in the last couple of years. So I didn't understand the real need to be dynamic. So these are the data sources on the side that are all all included, but I would put date on filter, and then filter the number of dates that are in that visual. Not realizing that when our data changes and it gets updated, we're going to have to manually go in and fix that, instead of fixing it at the stored procedure level. And I didn't realize how important that was until this. And then the last thing that I learned, which was kind of important, I learned that in Tableau, like I think Dan said, a story is a dashboard of dashboards. When you make a dashboard, you take visuals in workbooks, you put them on a dashboard, and you take those dashboards and you put them on a story. If you have a change, even as simple as bolding an axis label on the side, if you need to make that change in the workbook because it's all connected. You make a change in the workbook at the base, the change goes to the dashboard, and it changes in the story. If you make that change in the story, you've broken that connection. And now the dashboard doesn't have that change, and the workbook doesn't have that change. That was a big aha moment for me. So once QA gives us the green light that the visual is good to go, that's when we zero out these parameters. So this is our parameter, and now we're going to zero that out so that the client doesn't get to see anybody else's data, even if it's on accident. And then we refresh all of the visuals. Here is our refresh piece. We label things a particular way. This is how we label it, but in the process needs to have a particular formatting, naming convention, whatever it is you use. So our naming convention is to use this District Forecast 360 for this particular story, so it has to have this exact same name. We go ahead, and here's the data sources, which are stored procedures, and we hit the refresh button, and then they're all zeroed out. So now this becomes the template that we're going to use to run the stories. We make a Twibix file, and we save it in a particular spot that they'll know where to get it from in the process that we're running, and then it's all ready to be replicated.
So with replication, Patti mentioned the name of the workbook. Do I still have red on my forehead from when I beat my head against the XML wall of Tableau? Because it felt like it for a long, long time. It was an iterative process where Patti can attest to. My desk is like within close range of the rest of the team, and every time I thought I had it, I would run it, and it would fail. So, there's another one, there's another one. So there are a lot of different places inside the XML where Tableau, they do some hard coding, they do referencing, they do all that stuff, and it's a long, drawn-out process to get everything named the right way so that when you go to programmatically deploy the visual, it works right. So the workbook and the worksheet need to have the same name. One other thing to note with the Twibix that I just realized that we didn't include in this is that every sheet inside the template workbook that's not the story needs to be hidden, because programmatically, when you use the Tableau REST API to publish that to the server, it will publish every visible sheet in the workbook. So when you create the templates, make sure you hide everything except for the main story sheet, because it will deploy them all. How do you think I know that one? Because I did it, and it's like, why do we have 500 visuals here? Oh, because I didn't hide everything. So the naming needs to be the same. In the XML, in Tableau, in Python, all I did was use the XML element tree. And I scanned through and did a for loop and all of that. I grabbed the object inside the XML. I put that object, as you can see here, I said I find all the data sources. In Tableau, they consider parameters a data source. So a parameter is one of the data sources, and it's named parameters. You can see that here. So we just go through every data source that we get into this object here, we loop through that. And then for every data source, if it's parameters, I do a find and replace of the values for the current selected peer set and customer that I'm creating, and I just do a find replace. Same thing with non-parameters. So you saw we have 7 or 8 different data sources. All of those data sources have a hard-coded reference to the values of the parameters as they were saved at the time that they were saved. So if you remember, we zeroed everything out and saved that package workbook. All parameter values that are defined inside each of these data sources are all 0. And so every single one of those needs to be changed to reference the actual value that we want to be called when the refresh of the data source happens. Make sense? So parameters, not parameters. And then after that, there are several places inside Tableau Desktop that reference the same name of the visual with that underscore, underscore, underscore logic that we had. The storyboard, obviously that needs to be named the same as the workbook. The window, I'm not even sure what that does, to be honest with you. It's the window. I learned that. How did I learn that? Because I didn't do it, and then Tableau said, I don't recognize this file. It's formatted improperly. Same thing with the thumbnails. When you hover over and it pops open the thumbnail inside Tableau Desktop, that uses the name of the workbook, the name of the worksheet, the name of the storyboard to do that logic to pop open the thumbnail. And then this is the Twibix package after the fact. After we name everything, we also need to change this name inside the package and then the name of the Twibix file here of the package itself to be the new name. So you see everything inside there needs to be the same name as the rest of it based on the logic that we've put together in the script. Just so you know, this underscore, underscore logic, that's specific to our environment. It's the ID of the category so that it shows up in our application the right way. This is client, user, and peer set. In your system, it might be whatever creates a uniquely identifiable string so that you can, when you deploy it to Tableau Server, you're not going to get is it underscore 1, underscore 1, underscore 0, underscore 2, whatever. So after we replicate, but before we do that, I want to show you. Remember the empty folder that I showed you? So now here are 274 copies of the workbook that are ready to be picked up and deployed to the Tableau server. So you're like, okay, but it's already been a half an hour since you started your yammering on down there in front of us. So what's the big deal? You created 274 of them. Let me show you in the code. It took 52 seconds to create 274 visuals. Granted, they're empty, but if you're doing this after hours, or if you're doing this, so 52 for 274, doing quick math, that's fast, right? If you have one of them, as we have users that are in our system, we have a goal down the road of being able to allow them to select their peer set, select the story template that they want, and click a button that says create it for me. And then it will launch this back-end process for a single visual, for a single copy, and they will get a custom analytic within a couple of minutes at the most, depending on how long it takes to refresh. So 50 seconds, and that's on this network. You know, I've seen it run as fast as 40 seconds for these 275. So the push to Tableau Server. How many people actually have Tableau Server? Okay, pretty much every single one of you. And how many people actually work with Tableau Server more than just publishing from the workbook to the server that somebody else controls? Okay, so a few admin type, server people. We created a totally separate site for the stories. As I was thinking this week about all the different ways that we could do it, I really enjoyed the keynote this morning. It reminded me of what I tell the team all the time, and that is always be willing to change things, always be willing to identify the things that aren't working. So I'm thinking that down the road, we may be able to create a subsite per state. Right now, we create a project per state, and every project has an underscore. This is the same underscore value as the client. This is the client ID. So every client has their own sub-project in their state's project in Tableau Server. Every client has their own group for permissions. I just decided to make it really simple. So every client, if there's only one user in that client, there's one user assigned to that group. If there are 50 users in that group, and it's all just basic permission management. And then here is all of the visuals of client number 1, all of the templates that we've created copies for that client. So this is a snapshot back to what I showed you with stories at the beginning. The tags that we put in, how many people leverage tags in Tableau Server? Neither did I. It was like, why do tags? I mean, a few of you do, but I've never really thought that there would be any value in using the tags. But this process is really shortcutted. We're the data development team. We have a front-end development team, application team, that they have 3 or 4 other applications that their time is being demanded for. So anything that we do on our side, we have to make it as dead simple as possible for them to do the work. And so I wanted to do everything I possibly could to just say, just give us this window, give us this interaction, give us this thing, and make it as simple as possible for them. So in the REST API payload, tags come back with every single visual. So you see the District Financial 360, that's the name of the visual. You got Storyboard 2, that's the name of the peer set for the current user's peer set that defined this story. The user name is in there, so the user is there, and everything. So the server setup, Python modules. Okay, the modules that we use for Python, most of them were already installed in Python, but we did add Tableau tools. I mentioned that. Highly, highly recommend it. Subversion for easier template updates, the XML eTree element tree, zip file so we could open and create and extract and do all the stuff we needed to do with that Twibix package file. And then other utilities for file management, logging and things like that. So here's just a screen of a bunch of impressive transitions that I wanted to see if anybody was paying attention to how good I am at PowerPoint. That's it. That's a lot of information in a very short amount of time. It has taken us, we started the journey in January, was when I came up with the idea of how to leverage the stories to quickly give people the answers to what they need. Between January and now, using this process, we've created almost 20,000 copies of story templates that our customers have used. We use them for sales at conferences where they come up and they say, I'm so-and-so from District ABC, and we say, oh, District ABC, here's a customized report for you. Wouldn't you love to be able to leverage our tool and our application for further value in your organization? So, like I said, we went through a lot of information in a very short amount of time. What we have found is that people who, educators who use our tool are education experts. They shouldn't be expected to be data experts. We're the data experts. So what we wanted to do is we kept hearing from them, we like your tool, but I just don't have time. I can't find the time to get in and use it. And so what we've done with this is we've found a way to give them a fast, easy, consumable product, and we're now able to do that. We have 70 templates so far that we're leveraging, and as we add more states, we're going to have even more templates. In the future, what we're going to do is we're actually building out infographics that will follow the same method of a template being replicated and published through programmatic underpinnings. And so it's not just for stories. It could be used for any kind of visuals that you might have. So that's what we have so far. I can open it up for questions. Anyone? Yes?
Yeah, I was curious, do you have different schemas for your data across the states, or is there a fairly consistent schema that you're leveraging?
Great question. The question was, do we have different schemas across all the states, or do we have a fairly consistent schema? We have a pretty consistent schema. We have started, because of data volumes, to start to disconnect those, but for the most part, one schema. Do we have any coffee lovers in the house? There's two, three, four. I brought some freshly roasted coffee, so questions, get coffee. Mostly kidding, but I'm really not. Any other questions? Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes? Good question. The question was, did we consider having, let me rephrase that in a way that I think I understand it and see if it's accurate. Having one big data set and push the data to the user based on who is currently logged in? Okay. That's actually what our deep dive analytics do. And the challenge with that has always been, think Texas. Texas has 400,000 teachers. And having a data set that's carrying the weight of 400,000 teachers, it's a performance hog right away. So we did try that, and we tried to at least start by a filtered presentation of that visual, but it's really cumbersome, and people were frustrated at how long it took them to get their visual. So good question. Yes? Great question. So the question is, did we consider using the document API as opposed to using Tableau Tools? So Tableau Tools is a wrapper around both the server REST API and the document API. So Tableau Tools, for me as a non-REST developer, as really a non-developer almost, it created a much simpler interaction with the document API and the REST API and the server API. Sure. Yes. The comment was about Tableau always saying you shouldn't hack XML, and here we are saying we're hacking XML. That's a great question. I had the word unsupported. Really, it comes down to this. They're not going to stop us from doing what we need to do to use the tool. What they will say is, I'm so sorry that you did that, and you're having problems. Good luck. Right? So it's not we can't do it. It's if you do it and you get stuck, there's no support for that. And a lot of times what I've seen is new enhancements, new features based on the work done by people who go in to hack the XML or hack the database or whatever to do what we want to do. So it's just like anything. If you go into your car, you open up the hood and you start to replace the pistons in your engine and you're in warranty, then you go to Ford and say, I really messed this up. They're going to say, wow, you really did mess that up, didn't you? Right? So it's going to be the same thing with any product that you go in and you do stuff to. You're taking it into your own hands at that point. One good example of that is we, in our initial use of Tableau Server, we created custom views in the workgroup database. That disabled several features for us as we tried to do what we could do with Tableau because, like a site copy, we weren't able to do a site copy because they saw that we changed the underlying schema. We could still do it. I mean, everybody has the ability to see the underlying God password, right, for Tableau Server, but you're taking your Tableau life in your own hands when you're doing that. And the trick is, Subversion allows you to roll back if you break it. So you are your own support. So we're all smart, intelligent people, hopefully, if we're doing this work. And if we do things to potentially break stuff, we're our own enemy if we can't get ourselves out of it. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Right.
So, with Tableau Tools, how long has this been
Yeah. Good question about the versioning of Tableau tools and how it interacts with different layers, different versions of Tableau Server. Is that right? When a new server REST API version comes out, Bryant adds that as an overload object definition on top of the ones that have already existed. And just like Tableau, there are certain ones that we aren't backward compatible to, but Tableau Tools has those overload objects. So if you reference something that was from 2.8 or 2.5 or whatever, the REST API versions, it does work. So what we build doesn't break because Tableau Tools upgrades, because we're still referencing the old version. Any other questions? Yes? Okay, so and correct me if I'm wrong, but the question is about the single tab for stories, and is it connected to other workbooks that have the other data? Okay, we create one workbook per story. And if there's a new story that we want to create, it's a whole new workbook. And so it's all self-contained. And so when you see that one sheet, there are no other stories within that same workbook. It's all just the one. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, and then unhiding the story dashboard sheets, then you have to unhide the dashboard sheets as well, yes. So probably within there, in a story that has 12 pages, there might be 24 pages of sheets and dashboards and...
But on our product, they don't have the opportunity to unhide anything. So they just see the one, that's it. They don't even see a tab at the bottom.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We now have a table. We have a table that talks about the type of data that it is. So enrollment table for this state is 2018, and when that updates to 2019, we'll change it in that table, and then the stored procedure reads that table, so I don't have to touch.
And actually, the example that you saw had a year parameter in there. And we don't use that anymore, actually. We use the underlying stored procedure that returns that as a field, and so we control that data-wise. And our future plans also are to move the peer set into the stored procedure also, and so that it's just in our case, just the focus district, because we want to create it for a particular client. And that really creates more flexibility down the road as well, because if it's a single parameter, it could be anything that we're replicating. It could be a story, it could be an infographic, it could be any number of different templates that we create to do that. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Did you do that?
I appreciate you sticking around to the very last session of the very last day of the Tableau conference. I hope that you got information that is helpful to you. I owe some people a little bag of coffee. It's really actually quite good coffee, if I do say so myself. Here's our contact information. Please feel free to reach out. I believe in community. I believe in helping others gain benefit from the stuff that I have done. It's all something you can do, but the more we help each other, the more we help everybody. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.